start of it in old New York.
Yeah, for sure. It's good to be on here, Tony. It's nice to meet you, man. So my background is as a financial planner. I've been doing that for nearly 20 years now. And recently, I've decided to explore some other opportunities. Maybe we can get to some of the clients I've worked with and some of the things I've done over the years. But what's unique and why I like being on shows like this is I made a major change in my career just a couple years ago, and I decided to take an entire year off. And I've been in the same industry for most of my adult life, nearly 20 years, and just kind of decided I needed a change. I needed a break. I needed to do something different. And so taking a year off is a whole process, and there's more to it than just, walking away, because I got a family, I've got a mortgage, I've got people relying on me. And so I had to develop a whole system to make that happen. And along the way of developing that system, I realized, man, this can really help other people. And so I decided to turn it into a book. And so it ended up being a little bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy where I used my year off to write a book about taking a year off. And it led me to some interesting places. So that's me and where I'm at right now.
What did you do during the year off?
Yeah, it was hard. It was a lot harder than I thought. I'm not one of those lay on the beach type of people. So it wasn't like, sweet, I'm going to, it's going to be daily Mai Tais and doing nothing. That doesn't do a whole lot for me. So
Right.
A lot of the prep work is figuring out what the heck you're going to do. And I found that one of the keys is carrying a schedule from what you're doing before into your year off, right? So you're not sleeping in later, you're not wandering around in the afternoon wondering what to do. So what I did is I created a real disciplined schedule where I would write at certain times a day. I would check in on my business certain times a day, even if I wasn't going to be in the office. I try to spend time with my kids a certain time of day. And so I was keeping that structure. So what I did was basically, to answer your questions, I explored a bunch of different opportunities. So I looked at different business deals. I looked at volunteer opportunities. And through that process, I found a lot of things I didn't even know I was looking for.
So you took a year off, but you still were as hands-on as can be expected with running your business and making sure
I had to check in. I removed myself from the day-to-day, so I didn't have to have my email open. I had all my calls forwarded to the office. I had my voicemails picked up by my staff. I had them checking my email inboxes. I had them doing most of the work. So occasionally there was something that, there was a password only I had. There was an issue only I had seen. There was a client I'd known for 15 years that they'd only known for a year. So there's stuff.
They're like, where is he? He's taking a year off.
Yeah.
No, he's not.
Yeah, where the hell
Bring
is
him in.
Yeah. And just to be honest, some clients I was up front with them. Some of them, I wasn't that I wasn't honest, but it's like, they don't need to know. I don't talk to them. I only talk to them once a year anyway, so I'll talk to them next year. And so
talk to everybody right before you start the year off. This way you're good for a year.
You got it, my man. That's how it works. So that worked for the most part. It was great.
So were you traveling, or
a little?
were you?
I'm a big regional traveler. It's cool to say you want to explore the world and everything, but you got to know yourself. That's not me, and I don't want to go on safaris. Maybe do another trip to Europe someday, but I like staying in the U.S. I like staying on the West Coast. Not that I'm not down for a few more big trips in my life, but no, it's not about wandering the rainforest for me at all. So yeah, I got out a lot, got down to some warmer climates, even some colder climates, but in general for me, it's weekend trips, it's 3-4 day getaways. It's not sit somewhere else for a month.
That seems like a good, it sounds plausible to do. Not like, I had a buddy that was in computer programming, and he traveled the world for like a year, just going on writing. I think he was getting his work from like Upwork or something.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, that's some things that some people are into that. Some people want to just, they have their home base where they like to be out of, and then explore from there, which is what those 3-4 day trips sound like.
Yeah.
Preferable to those people.
Yeah. And the people want to get out for a month or 2 months, more power to them, man. I mean, I think that's fantastic. But for the people who can work off a laptop, who maybe don't have a family yet, who don't have those commitments, That's what the internet's full of, and it's full. There's 1,000 articles a day published about how to live that life. No, I don't have anything to add. What I have to add to is people who have commitments, people who have bought a house, right, and have something to do, people who have a family, people who have a job. I got married when I was young, and I'd do it over again. You know, I know people are waiting longer to get married, but, you know, even if you get married in your mid-20s, then you got a spouse, right? And you guys got to figure out how to do it together, and you got to figure out how to get on the same page. So I'm trying to bring a little more practicality to it, other than like, hey, you're young and unattached, go do what you want. Like, that's cool, but that's not my jam, you know?
So you wrote the book about called Year Off.
Yeah.
And what were some of the insights? I didn't get a chance to read before we
Yeah, no, for sure, man. It was really interesting. So kind of at the heart of it is a money system to make it happen. So it's a system I've been using with my clients for, you know, not the whole time I've been a financial planner, but certainly for the last 10 years. I built kind of a budgeting system because I realized that most people don't know how to budget, and they don't follow a budget, and they hate money, and they hate dealing with it. And I don't blame them. And as a CPA, you know, budgeting's easy for me, but I have a spouse too. So guess what? She was a nurse and doesn't like to budget. So I had to come up with something that would work for both of us, instead of, you know, after the first 5 years of my marriage, me presenting various spreadsheets, you know, I realized that I'm wasting my time, and I get it. I was, you know, it's terrible. I don't blame her for ignoring me. So I had to come up with something that would work. So I developed something for us that would work, where it was, you know, just kind of a series of managing some different bank accounts that serve different purposes. And it worked fantastic. And then I turned that into something to do with my clients, and I implemented it for them too. And that worked because so many of them had tried budgeting or spreadsheets or the Dave Ramsey system or whatever. Even for 10% of them, it would click. But that left the other 90% who were like, yeah, we don't really do anything. So I had to come up with a system. But that's all to say, that's at the heart of the Year Off book and the system that I wrote, because people like to think, or you like to say out loud, right? Like, hey, money doesn't drive me. Money's not a big part of my life. And I don't think that's the right attitude. I think that money's one of the operating systems it takes to run our life. And so you got to take it seriously, or you can't do anything.
Right. Yeah. And that's probably the number one hindrance why people wouldn't do a lot of the things. So how was somebody like, I have a mortgage, I have kids, I have a wife. I don't.
Yeah.
I mean, I have some of those things, but, you know, no wife and kids. How would I go about, what's like the number one thing somebody, if there's a roadmap, what's the first step they take to your plan, your program?
Number one, list out your bills. Write a list of your bills. You got to know what your overhead is. So if you lost your job tomorrow, what do you still owe? You know, your parents' basements and bomb off their food. And you could make some adjustments to your lifestyle, but you've got your bills don't go away if something happens to your job. So between your mortgage, your car insurance, your car payment, your utilities, your cell phone, you know, what do you owe? And start there. So a lot of people haven't listed those out, and they don't know where they're at. So I find, you know, a lot of times in a first meeting, I'll just have people list it out because they haven't looked at it all before. And they'll either think, oh man, that's not as bad as I thought. I've been feeling like crap, but really that's not horrible. Or they're like, no wonder I'm drowning. Look at all that horse shit. You know, I don't need all of that on there. And I'm like, yeah, that's way too much stuff. You got to do something. But just the act of listing that out makes a huge difference for people to get going.
And if people have a lot like credit card debt, I don't know, a bunch of different bills. A lot of people say, oh, you should get a loan consolidation.
Yeah.
Debt consolidation.
Yeah.
Correct me, because I'm very amateur in this field.
No, that's good, man. That's good. Well, first of all, the first thing to understand, right, is people don't know what they're talking about. And
people don't know what they're talking about?
No, people don't know what they're talking about.
They
I don't want to
insult Facebook pages and Instagrams. That doesn't mean that they...
Doesn't mean expertise. Yeah, I know I know I'm delivering some shocking news.
They shared a meme.
They're experts, right? And the other thing you see is even if people do know what they're talking about what worked for them, right. Which isn't necessarily what's gonna work for you. So even though so really a good place to start is with your credit score, not because I think it matters, because it doesn't, but it's the discipline required to get the good credit score is what happens. So the work you have to put in underneath will translate over other parts of your life. So you can look up your credit score, you can see what an average credit score is, and if yours sucks, you know you need to make some changes in the way you manage money. And that can include consolidating debt. It can include opening credit card or closing credit cards. Sometimes it includes opening credit cards if you don't have enough credit. So if you don't know where to start there and look at why your credit score sucks, and it'll start to get you pointed in the right direction.
So that would be, because sometimes these credit card companies have like these crazy APRs and stuff.
Yep.
So I guess if you're looking at something that could get you a better APR and you got like a fixed payment and you're able to get rid of that, because it seems like it's impossible sometimes because you get incurred interest charges that are more than what you could pay every month.
Yeah. Well, for sure. And it gets to be a problem. So let's say you've got a bunch of credit card debt at 24%, which obviously sucks. Everybody knows that. And you're able to refinance it, using your house or something. So now you're paying 5% on the debt. Well, that's great, right? You saved yourself a ton of money. But if you didn't fix what ran up that credit card debt in the first place,
so habits,
you're just going to run it back up. So habits, you got to change your habits, or else everything else, you can shift around numbers all you want, but it doesn't matter. You don't change your habits, you're getting right back where you started, just with more debt.
How would somebody go about change? Budget. Yeah. That's why the budget's so important.
Yeah. Well, that's really interesting. So one of the things I see is that so the money really is similar to diet and exercise, and there's no shortage of systems and processes and fads and whatever to get going. And what's really cool about that, though, is people will keep trying stuff. Yeah, maybe they don't stick with it. Yeah, maybe they move on too quick. Yeah, maybe people are lazy. Maybe I am too sometimes. But there's still always more and more things to try and more things to do. And people are willing to, even people who failed for years will keep trying. I think that's awesome. That's the one place it differs from money. People think, hey, there's budgeting, there's online software, there's nothing else. So if I've tried those two things, I'm out. Money sucks. I can't manage it. The budgeting process doesn't work for me. There aren't 100 money things to try. So if people try the one or two and they don't work, they give up. So what I try to get people to do is say, what I'm trying to say is, hey, I've got another option you haven't seen before. My system is something you haven't seen. It doesn't mean it's guaranteed to work. It doesn't mean you should switch from your system, but it means if you've tried the 1, 2, 3 things out there that aren't working and they don't work for you, keep going. Mine's a new one.
And yours exactly is first laying out all your bills. So that's the first step.
Yep. Yeah. So I'll give you a little preview of it, right?
I need to go through it. Yeah. We're like asking for the.
Yeah. Well, actually, and then people have to buy my book, or I don't get their $3, so I'm not getting rich. So
is your book on Audible?
It is not. Maybe we can do it. Maybe we can get on this pod. I'll just read it to you and we'll post it on Audible.
Yeah, well, it's because I like 90% of the books I listen to, and I know a lot of people listen to now. It's just all because I drive a lot, and I should read it and then go to the gym and.
No, for sure, man. If I start, once I start selling here, which it's starting to pick up a little bit, so I'm hoping I get rolling here shortly. Then maybe I'll go record one. But yeah, no. It's breaking down what you have into it's 2 steps, right? The first step is breaking down what you have into categories. There's your overhead that doesn't go away. Then there's the money used to live your life, right? That's eating out, that's traveling, that's partying, that's whatever, So that's basically what standard of living you've gotten used to. And then the third category is just money you don't spend. So it can be retirement, it can be a savings account, it can be whatever. So there's basically your overhead, how you live, money you don't spend anywhere else, or you're going to spend at a later date. So those are the 3 categories. And then what I do is help you understand what percentage is going to each, because that's a big deal. Is 80% of your income going to overhead? Because right away, that's not going to work, right? Or is it 30%? Because that's pretty cool. That gives you a lot of flexibility in your life. So I help you understand the percentages. And then, so if you're talking about, hey, should I take on a new car payment? Well, I'm not going to tell you
percentage it is.
Yeah. I'm not going to tell you if it's right or wrong. I'm going to tell you what you have to give up. I'm going to say, well, it's going to bring your overhead from 50% to 55%, which is going to bring your lifestyle down this much. Are you cool with that or are you not cool with that? And you can make that decision. So what most people are missing is a framework to make the decisions, right? There's no right or wrong with all this. Yeah, you want to go buy a $200,000 boat, knock yourself out. I just want you to know what it costs you, or you're never going to retire. That's why if you want to make that choice, I don't give a shit, but I just want you to see before you do.
Okay. For I have this thing, I have this app called Acorns
Yeah, yeah,
that just because I'm not the best at just creating a side thing of money just from
yep,
my own stuff. So
yep,
I created like an IRA thing that so I just put like $20 a week right now into that.
yeah,
They said put like an hour pay into it, so I just put 20. I figured I put 20 a week right now.
yeah,
Um, but then it's hard to imagine retiring from that unless you have, you got a career that has like a 401k
yeah,
and all these other things, pensions.
yep, yep.
Um, so what would you say to somebody who doesn't have who's in a position where they not don't have a 401k per se
Yeah,
or
yeah,
a
yeah.
pension, like whatever.
Well, the cool thing is, if you're even if you're in the Acorn system, you've still gotten started and you can see what you have. So I can project out your $20 a month and be like, okay, here's where you're going to end up when you're 65. And then you
Right.
can be like, that's good enough, or that sucks, or what am I doing with my life, or whatever, right?
But
You can
what
do that.
something interesting too is that the value of money kind of fluctuates.
Hmm.
So you could project out that you will be worth whatever
Yeah,
when you're 65, 60,
yeah,
but that number then won't mean the same as that number now.
hmm,
So how does I guess it's whether it's inflationary, is there
yeah,
any like preparation for
yeah.
inflation, or do you want people to put money in Bitcoin to protect against that, or?
Yeah, man, that's a good question. So that's a huge part of being a financial planner is getting people to understand that what you spend, like what things cost today, isn't what they're going to cost in the future. So if you have your money in a bank account making 1%, right, and inflation is going to be 5%, guess what? You're losing money. You're losing money. That doesn't work.
Right.
So you're basically losing 4% a year in my example. So you got to invest in stuff that's going to be ahead of inflation. It's going to grow more than inflation. And Bitcoin hasn't been around long enough to we know if that does that. We know gold does okay, but we know for sure the stock market keeps way ahead of inflation. So that's what you want to focus
Really?
on. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Depending on what
I
numbers
should
you
know that.
use, is between 8 and 12% historical return, where inflation's just over 3% historical return or
Okay.
historical inflation rate. So even though it may vary year to year, over the long term, stocks are going to stay ahead of inflation pretty easily.
And I guess part of that is having diversified stocks
Yeah,
so
you got
that,
it, man. Like my iPhone's cool and Apple's been kicking ass, but like I don't want all my money there because anything can happen. Anything can
right,
go bad. So you want to own a bunch of different things. So like, you want to own 100 companies. So if one of them has an issue, whatever. That's not great, but fine. I got 99 chugging along. Things are still all good.
right. And it's so would how would you recommend somebody that's never invested in the stock market before? How do you recommend going to a financial planner to hitting you up to getting an A? Because I think Acorns they put stuff in like a bunch of different things or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know.
Well, it's better. Well, look, doing something like Acorns is better than nothing. So I always support getting going because again, you're developing a habit where you're putting something aside. So you're developing some type of system. So for me as a planner, right, it's all about getting some type of system. I'd rather you have a crappy system than no system at all. So as long as you're doing something great, we can work on fine tuning it. So that's the first thing. So nobody should feel bad if they've got something going that they don't think is perfect. Like, great, you got something going, you took action, awesome. Secondly, yeah, obviously I'm a big proponent of financial planners. And the reason I use the term financial planner instead of financial advisor or investment advisor is typically a financial planner isn't trying to sell you stuff. They're trying to give you advice.
Okay.
So that's a big part of my job is helping people understand how the industry works. There's a whole segment of people trying to sell you stuff you don't need. And there's a whole
Right.
segment of people trying to give you advice. And they look very similar to each other. They dress the
Right.
same, they use the same names, they use the same language, and you have to be in the business to be able to tell them apart. So that's what I try to do is steer people towards the financial planners who can help you with your budget, help you with your day-to-day expenses, get you set up with a retirement account with low fees, that type of thing.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about your background working with some of the clients that you had that same exact water, whatever you want to call it.
Just got off Amazon, this Camelback.
Yeah, the Camelback. I have the same.
Yeah,
I use it
sweet.
every day.
Nice, me too.
That's funny. Um, your some of the background you mentioned before, some it might be worthwhile to talk about some clients you've worked with and what have you.
Yeah, for sure. So over the years, it's run the gamut. And since I started in this business when I was 23 or 24, I worked with everybody from, when I started, it was my friends, right? They didn't have any money, just like I didn't have any money. So, you start at the basics, you learn about budgeting.
Did you go to school for finance or?
I did not actually originally. I got a degree in information systems.
Okay.
And so I did web design right out of college. But remember, this is '01. So this isn't web design like it's done today. Like my skills are totally irrelevant to anything that's happening now. So I did that at first and it was super boring. So went back, got my MBA, actually got my master's in accounting, got credentialed up, got licensed up, all that nonsense. And then got into the business. So I was well educated, but didn't have any money. My friends didn't have any money, but still had to learn the basics, start at the ground floor. So I worked with it was a while ago, but a lot of, people just getting started in their career. And we were dealing with new marriages, new families, budgeting, life insurance, they had their first retirement account at work. They'd never had one of those. So they didn't know what to do. They're like, what's health insurance? What does this mean? What's a deductible? So I had to walk them through some which is cool. It wasn't their job. It was my job.
What drew you to wanting to understand all that?
Well, I think like most people, you're attracted to the wrong thing in the business, right? So for me, it was when I was bored at my web development job, I was watching the stock market and I was like, man, this is crazy. This is interesting. I was reading. And so I thought, man, I'm going to learn about investments. I'm going to learn how to trade stocks. And then I got into the business and realized that's the least important part about what I do. It's way more important to help people set aside money on a monthly basis, communicate with their spouse about what's going on, have enough life insurance, keep their taxes down. Those things are way more important than picking stocks. But, like anything, it's the sexy part of it that attracts you to it. And then you get into it and realize, that's not the most, that's cool, but that's not really what I'm here for after all.
Okay. And just using your knowledge, it's just personal curiosity, and that eventually snowballed into you planning for your friends and for yourself, and that's how you start the foundation with just your personal curiosity.
Well, that's interesting. That did start the foundation, and really, it's funny. That was kind of, I didn't know it at the time, but that was kind of a real important lesson to the year off I was going to take almost 20 years later. 17 years later, whatever the number is, which is while I was still working in a job I didn't particularly like, I didn't just walk into my boss's office, flipping the finger and then go figure it out. I started reading, I started learning, I started planning for what I wanted to do next while I still had a paycheck. And so I got to learn the finance industry.
That's very wise for a 23-year-old or 24-year-old.
Yeah, I got lucky, right? But also, yeah, I guess I've always been an old soul, so I was kind of thinking about that. I've always been 60 years old, I think, since I was young. But so I started planning, started looking into, okay, how do you get into this industry? What are the different paths you can take? What does that look like? What does it pay? And so I was able to really even interview and get a job offer before I left my old job. So I was really able to plan out a major career break, even at a young age. And not put my new marriage and everything at risk, which is awesome. But then there's also, and because I didn't have enough money saved to just leave my job and be like, I'll figure it out. But this time I did. When I was older, I actually have money. It's like, okay, now I've got money set aside. I've got a business that's producing income. So now if I need to make a clean break.
This is your year off you're talking about now.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry, yeah. So now if I need to make a clean break, I can do it without knowing what's next, as long as I have a plan for figuring out what's next.
Okay. And what did your wife say while you were doing? You were very, because the good thing is you still had income.
Yeah.
So is part of your program getting people to take a year off? And what would they do if they don't have that business that provides that type of income for them? I guess
Yeah.
this is all
So
part of your.
yeah. So my program is getting people into a place where they can take a year off if they need to, or if
Okay.
one is forced upon them.
Right.
Right.
That
So
makes
as we've
sense.
seen this
This would
year,
be good. This is, yeah, I'm just going to say.
right? Right. And I had that happen for several clients who were ready, who then lost their job, and they were ready with their year off. So now they're spending it exploring exactly what they want to do, and they've got a plan and they've hit it running, because whether it's something crazy like COVID, or it's a health scare, or, I've had clients get cancer, get diseases, have a loved one, have to stay home and care for people. And you have to have your money, you have to have your financial life organized, because you don't know when these things are going to hit. You don't know when they're going to hammer you.
Yeah,
So,
especially like this year is a perfect.
right?
I wonder why the sales are starting to pick up
Yeah.
a bit now, because this year
Yeah,
is like,
exactly. And so I'm just finishing up this book while this is happening, and I'm just trying to get it out as quickly as I can, because I'm like, people need this right now, because sometimes you don't have control. So even if you're not like, you know, F my job, I want to go do something else, and you know exactly what it is, like that's great. And that's almost easier. It's more like, things aren't quite right. I don't know what I want to do, but it's something different. Well, that's the person that needs
yeah,
it the most, because you want to have that option. If inspiration does strike, down the road, or if your job does get too much to take, you don't want to have to start from scratch with your money and your financial life. You want to be ready to roll. So that's what I'm trying to get people ready.
it seems like there's a point where you can have the freedom to maneuver or whatever if you need to.
That's exactly right. Because you don't know what's around the corner. And especially the more you try to live your life, which is a good thing, you try to get out there, you push, you have new conversations, you have new experiences, the more things change and shift and open up. And suddenly there's opportunities there that weren't there before.
So whether it's wanting to learn something new,
Yeah.
because you're just fed up with your current situation, you just
Yep.
go in there. Like I had a good job with good benefits, good salary and everything, but I felt like I was losing my mind.
Yeah.
Just sitting
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
And it was so slow and whatever.
Yeah.
But fortunately, I don't have like a lot of these things that large overhead that you talked about, where I was able to just say, fuck this.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me.
You're good. You're good.
Now I'm working on some things and everything, and that's just like it's weird because talking about things, I usually don't talk about, like, inject so many personal references into the conversation, but it seems like it's
Good. Keep
relevant at
going.
this point.
Yeah.
So that, and then now I'm trying, I'm happier now.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm still trying to plan for what the next bit, like, because I'm getting to a point where it's like, enough, stop striving left, right. You got to figure out something and get on that.
Yeah.
I don't have the wisdom that you had even when you were in your early 20s.
No.
But
Well, and yeah, and that's the thing. It doesn't matter how long you just sit there and think as hard as you can and brainstorm and write down what's the next big opportunity I need to be prepared for. You won't get it right. You won't guess.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that you haven't thought of yet. I can guarantee you that. And so you have to think of, and that's true for pretty much everybody. So the question you have to ask yourself is, am I prepared for whatever may come? And that's my focus, which is, you don't know what it's going to look like. So you got to control what you can. And what you can control, right, is your habits, your routine, your discipline, your money, your reserves, your fitness, your health. Like, these are all things you can control that you're going to need no matter what it looks like, no matter what your opportunity looks like. And so my role, I can't help. I mean, I can talk trash about fitness and nutrition like everybody else, but those aren't my specialties, right? I don't know anything. I'll make stuff up like everybody else.
Everybody, yeah.
But money's what I do know. I do know that. I know it very well. And I want to get people prepared. So when the opportunity, we'll get to cheesy cliches, right? But when the opportunity knocks, like, for real, like, you can't say, oh crap, I can't take a 10% pay cut because I've built up all these bills, or else I'd love to join you on this new venture. You got to be able to say, hell yeah, let's go.
Yeah, because then you never know when that could happen. It could be, it could be anything.
Yeah, exactly.
I guess.
Exactly, man.
So what's What do you say? So what do you say to people that didn't have everything prepared, that this COVID struck?
Yeah.
Now they're like, are they out of luck? Are they SOL, or are they? Is there potentially
Yeah.
ways they can save or what have you?
Well, yeah, no, that's a great question, and it's hey, do you think what we've seen this year is going to be the last crazy thing to happen in the next few years?
Probably
Right?
not.
Do you think so? Because I sure as hell don't.
No.
I think the hits are going to keep
I'm
on coming.
nervous about this election.
Yeah,
I'm really like, I don't know what's going to happen. Well, no matter who wins.
it's insane. It's going to be insane either way. And after that, it'll be something else, right? In 2022, it'll be something else. And so you can keep thinking, man, I'm behind the eight ball, or you can just say, it's time. It's time to just start. It's time to just start, coming up with the disciplines, the routine, the habits, and the money systems. So when something does come along, I'm ready to roll.
And you would recommend that the best hedge against the dollar would be putting your money into stocks.
Yeah, long term, right? But you've got
Long
different
term.
things for different money. So like I said, if I have those different categories, your future money that's for future you that's down the road, yeah, that's got to go into stocks as much as you can. But then your shorter term money, like if you say, look, I'm gonna start a business in 3 years, well, that says something different. You're probably using a bank or something similar for that. But you can map out. So really, where you put your money is going to correlate to what you want to do with it. Your time frame on that. So you need the money in 12 months. You need it in 5 years. You need it in 40 years. It's going to determine where you put it.
Okay. So just saving in general is better for short term. Stocks
Yeah,
is more of a long term thing.
you got it.
Okay. And then do you have any feelings on a lot of people actually, because I used to be a little bit in this field too, cryptocurrency,
Yeah. So
too volatile to like.
well, yeah, it's a good question. So at this point, it's like gold. It's not an investment. So it doesn't have investment properties. Investments have solid, predictable long-term returns. And neither gold nor cryptocurrency have those. They're what we call speculation. So you're
Right.
more guessing where you think it's going to go or using it to hedge something. So as a financial planner, I don't consider those investments. That doesn't mean there's not a place for them. It just means if you consider part of them your investment portfolio, that's not what they are. Now, that being said, I personally believe the world is going to crypto, and the powers that be will fight it for most of my lifetime for sure. But it makes too much sense. It makes too much sense there's too much freedom in crypto. So I don't like it as an investment. Like, hey, let me scrounge up 10 grand and put it in crypto, see if I can triple it. That's a bunch of horseshit I don't support. But
Well, they had your chance in 2017 to do that.
yeah, exactly, right.
From
And people didn't know.
$1,000 to over 20.
I had a client like, around that time frame, right at the peak, and she wanted to move $250,000 out of her investments with me into Bitcoin.
When was that its highest?
Yep, because her son said this was a great time to buy. And I talked her out of it. Found out later she actually still moved 50 grand from the bank from somewhere else and bought into it, lost pretty much all of it. And I'm like, if everybody's telling you about it, you missed it, right? If a bunch of people are telling you what to do,
Yeah,
that means
don't.
you've already gone up over and over, and people still fall for it.
I had Bitcoin in March and the flip side of that, I had Bitcoin in March of 2017. Like
Really?
I was collecting it for like years,
Yeah.
and I sold it when it was at 1,000, and then I watched the rest of the year.
Yeah, of course.
It was like it was
I know.
terrible.
Well, that's the thing, right? You can't time it. So you
But
either
yeah,
got to
but it's just like that was my if that was my thing that was supposed to make it for me, then like whatever. I'll figure
yeah,
it's life, whatever.
yeah.
There's
But
luck, and it was just there was I don't know like with the like people why it was became so in demand either. Like was it
yeah,
John McAfee saying stuff about it, or I don't understand like what made it take
yeah.
off that year too.
Things get momentum. Things get momentum, and they take on a life of their own that operate outside of logic. And what people do, whether it's cryptocurrency or the stock market or even Instagram, they compare their experience to the very best that's out there. Here's the very best, and here's what I did, and mine isn't good enough. And whether it's a stock or crypto, during that run, I can ask you how many people got to buy at the very lowest price it ever traded for during whatever time frame. One person. Only one person got that trade at the lowest number. How many people got to sell at the very, very, very top before it went down?
One person.
One.
Okay.
So everybody but one person on either end is thinking, man, I could have done better, right? And it's insane. It's absolutely insane. It's impossible to time everything right, yet people keep trying to do it and are mad when they don't.
Right. That's that's a very sound statement. It's impossible, because a lot of people will look at things. Like I look at that stupid Bitcoin thing.
Right?
But
you're
it's
like,
impossible.
man, I could have done it.
Yeah.
You probably did better than millions of people, right? And
Yeah, that's the thing. I still ended up some, I don't know, because I just think, oh no, and I keep it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I like crypto for the future of currency though. That's my belief. I believe we're going crypto. Yeah.
Okay. Not necessarily like Bitcoin, but some type of blockchain technology.
Yeah, yes, blockchain crypto for sure. I don't know enough about the differences between the crypto to really know, to say which one I think, but just for something as simple as facilitating international payments,
right? Yeah, it makes sense.
It's such a no-brainer because it's so expensive to do right now, through the traditional banking system, that it's just an absolute no-brainer.
Okay. Yeah, I think most people and that's something that seems like inevitable.
Yeah.
That something will, and I don't know. I feel like there will be some type of standard. It won't just be like this thing that's worth 10,000, 20,000. Like there'll be some type of order in which it's implemented. I don't know. I have no idea, but I'm just.
So I just got an Uber ride last night, and this guy was an interesting character. He was talking our ear off, and then he had a business card. He's like, you want my business card? And I wish I could remember it, but it's like Uber driver, conversationalist, and he had like 3 more things. I wish I had it on me. Yeah. It's like, okay. It was spelled wrong too.
AKA person.
Yeah. And the last thing on there was Bitcoin miner. And this is like a 65-year-old dude driving Uber, and I'm like, all right. I'm like, how much Bitcoin mining you do, man? He's like, oh yeah, me and a couple guys, we got a couple some old Dell computers we set up at servers, and I'm like, I'm like,
probably costing more in electricity.
Yeah, like, yeah, you making 8 cents a day? Like, what are you doing? But people want to be in on what's next. They want to see around the corner, and about the only thing to know is you're rarely rewarded for being first in anyway, right? You do the Apple strategy, you let somebody else figure it out, and they just come in and do it a little bit better. So instead of finding the next big thing, it's more about just the habits and the discipline, so you have the resources available when you find something that makes sense for you.
Well, let me get what's your thoughts on the national debt right now? And
well, it's insane.
We keep this year especially. It's been like $1 trillion, almost like $1 trillion a month or something ridiculous. Mm-hmm. Would that factor into? Could that affect your future planning?
Oh, absolutely. I have a lot of clients who don't want to invest really in anything in the U.S. because the national debt is so high, and I talk them out of that. At the end of the day, it doesn't really work any different than a household. I mean, you can make it as complicated as you want, but it doesn't need to be. At the end of the day, the national debt is credit card debt, at a better interest rate, and it doesn't just go away. So you think about the options.
Yeah, I just don't get though.
Yep. So let's say I don't remember.
If I have credit card debt and then I get more and more credit card debt, then I'm more and more screwed over, regardless of what the interest rate is, because it's just so much, and the more it is, the more interest rate is.
That's exactly right. So if you have $100,000 in credit card debt, or so you say you make $100,000 a year, right? And then your interest payments and then you have, $200,000 in credit card debt. Like, that's a lot, right? That's obviously way too much. And then let's say your interest payments are 30 grand a year on that credit card debt, right? So now you're paying 30 grand a year, 100 grand salary, 30 grand is going to make your credit card statements. So clearly there's disaster looming, but there's one thing that fixes it, right? Instead of making 100, you make 120 next year, right? And so the only way out of the situation long term is to have the income keep rising. Now, the U.S.
But
is so
that's
dumb.
taxes.
Yeah, you have to raise taxes, or the economy has to grow. So you have to have more businesses paying taxes, or people even at the same rate.
Okay.
So you need economic growth to stay ahead of the debt. So you have to have more tax revenue coming in, and you can do that by raising taxes. And we can skip that whole deal. You can do that by raising taxes, or you can do it by basically creating more millionaires, which means incentivizing businesses to grow. And there's the only ways you can stay ahead of the debt.
Which my understanding is Trump's done a decent job of that. Like with
Yep, yeah.
there's more
So
businesses staying
yeah,
here.
it depends on how much of it you want to get into. I'll just say as a business owner, right? As a business owner, having regulations lowered and having tax rates lowered allowed me to take on partners for my business and allowed me to pay them more money and grow my business. And everybody's making more money, which also means everybody's paying more in taxes. So more jobs,
Right.
lower fees for our clients. We're paying more money in taxes. Even with the lower rates, we're making more money now. So the tax revenue is still going up. And it's worked out well. Now, I'm not going to say, hey, my story means that's happening everywhere, but it's also happening to my clients. So it's been, I will say the main thing that's happened under the Trump administration, and again, people have such strong opinions. Like, I don't need to say I like Trump and have everybody tune out, right? Like, I don't need to do that to your show. Like,
it's
but
crazy.
the main thing that happened.
I had two very pro-Trump guys on last week, and I was trying to like settle them down a little bit, and it was just like, but I'm very independent. I'm an independent, and I have opinions, but it's fine if you're pro.
Yeah.
Like, the thing is, it's fine if you're pro-Trump. I'll talk to somebody that's pro-Biden too. It's just like, it doesn't matter. It's just
whatever, right?
What is it? What it is is what it is.
Yeah, good for you. I will say one of the things that changed that most people don't understand if they're not a business owner is businesses felt under attack when Obama was in office. And there was increased regulations, and there was kind of, the lawsuits felt kind of random. Big businesses were under assault, in headlines and speeches, corrupt corporations, blah, blah, blah. It's just kind of endless. And so when you feel under attack and you feel like somebody might be trying to take your company down, you don't spend money to expand. People don't invest money in a company that they think the government might be going after. And so one of the things that's happened in the last several years is businesses don't feel like they're under attack anymore. They feel like they know the playing field. The rules aren't going to change part way. Like, if these are the regulations, I can proceed. They're not going to get changed at the last minute after I've put millions of dollars into this project.
What about businesses that are like forced to close because of COVID and everything, like a bunch of gyms?
Yeah, that's a tough one, man. I mean, that's one of those things with no right answer. Like, I actually thought the government solution of giving the paycheck loans to the businesses was actually decent. I thought that was pretty good. I helped a lot of my clients get those loans. It wasn't perfect, but I thought it was pretty decent. If you can keep people on the payroll, for the next few months while we get through this, then this business will still be rolling on the other end. That worked for a lot of my clients. It was that lifeline that kept them going. And once their industry was able to reopen, they still had their staff. They still had the lights on. They didn't default on their mortgage. They were still rolling. So I was a fan of that in general. On the other end, I'll just tell you the stimulus checks, the rebate checks going back out to Americans, that's just pure politics on both sides. Those do absolutely nothing to help anybody. So I'm glad people like it. Yeah, I'm glad I'm sure people like getting it, but that's why they do it, because people like getting it. But, there's nowhere to spend it. And if you do spend it, you're spending it at a place that's already killing it, like a grocery store or something, or you're paying down debt, and that doesn't help anybody. So
that could help with rent and mortgage and.
Yeah. If it helps people from defaulting, that's cool. But again, we're getting as much data saying that people are stopped paying their mortgages anyway, and you're using COVID as an excuse and just saying, it's going to get forgiven. So, yeah, it's interesting. But again, it's one of those things that there isn't necessarily a right answer. It's just trying things and seeing what works. And I will say the government has done a better job than I expected them to. I expected a total crash and burn, and they've actually done a couple things that worked all right.
Something that I think is just worth mentioning is that the banks, everything gets put on pause, but mortgages are still, they have that 6 month deferment thing, but then it's you're
Mhm.
hold the whole thing anyway at the end of it.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
it's like
It's
everything's
like that.
paused except the banks always make sure they get their money.
Well, for sure, right? So they will at the end of the day, but then again, it's kind of this. I mean, it's almost a house of cards, right? Because if a business owner can't pay their rent, then whoever owns the building can't pay the bank, and then whoever the bank borrowed money from, which is the people who have money in their bank, doesn't have that money around anymore to give it back to the people who keep money in their bank, and the whole thing, there starts to be kind of a whole run on the whole system. So the thought was, at the ground level, let's keep businesses paying their rent, and let's keep people paying their rent.
So
But
that
with the
banks can
deferment on
still
rent,
afford to
yeah,
provide.
yeah, and then they can keep lending out money, because if banks stop lending out money tomorrow, I mean, our economy is done instantly. Money has to keep moving. People have to buy houses. People have to move. People have to finance equipment. People have to buy trucks. People have to buy machinery. A dentist has to buy a new machine to keep the economy going.
Yeah, you
It's
said
things you
House
don't
of
think about.
Cards. I was just thinking it sounds like a House of Cards.
Oh, it for sure is. It for sure is.
Do you think that is there any threat to that House of picking the jack out of the middle and the whole thing collapsing?
Well, it's what almost happened in 2008. So I don't know if your demographic is, mostly your age or whatever. You guys were alive, but maybe weren't tuned in, during the 2008 stuff. But basically, everybody stopped lending money overnight, and there was a real concern that we were just going to have an absolute economic collapse and pandemonium, and we were pretty close to it, closer than most people think. So the global economy and the U.S. economy, and I don't want to give everybody an economics lesson here, but it depends on money moving, and that includes lending. Lending cannot stop, or this whole thing ends.
Shit. So the banks have so much power.
They do, they do, and and the banks basically get their money from the Federal Reserve, so they get their money cheap from the
Right.
government, and so that's how it is. So the government basically just gives free money to the banks when they need to keep the lending machine going.
Okay. That's when they talk about interest rates going down
Yep,
and all that.
yep,
'Cause if it's
yep.
down to zero,
There's going to be more money moving, which is going to juice the economy supposedly. And when
right.
rates are higher, it's going to be more expensive, so it's going to slow down the economy.
Wow. I,
Yeah,
it's just,
pretty crazy, right?
it just feels like it's so artificial.
Yeah. Oh, it is. It is. And so when we talk about the government being in bed with greedy banks, it's 1,000% true. Like, it is true. But that's a system that's been built. Because if Bank of America stops lending money tomorrow, we have an instant depression. They're big enough where we have an instant recession for sure, and maybe an instant depression if the big banks can't lend out money. So we have to keep it going.
And what would you say to people on the left that are saying that this is a problem? This is why we need to have socialism, communism, and all that good stuff that's killed millions of people throughout the last couple of centuries.
Well, I think that proves my point. The banks are socialism. Those aren't capitalist institutions. If
That's
you,
yeah, that's true. I used to say forget I used to like tell
if
people
people
that
think
it's
banks run on a capitalist system, they're insane, and they need to do some reading. They are the government. They basically the government so tightly controls the regulations and the interest rates and the terms that things can be done. Whatever percentage of home mortgage loans are backed by the government, which means they set the terms, and it's the same all up and down the economy. There's no free market in the banking system. So look what you got. You got your socialist system there, and how's it working? It works like shit. If I want to start up a good guy bank in my little corner of the world, I can't. There's too many regulations that cost too much money. I have to do exactly what the government says. I can't innovate. I can't make the system better. So what I would say, in addition to the hundreds of millions, if not billions, of people who have historically been killed under those ideas, I would say you can also look at the systems where it's basically government run, and you can look at the systems where it's not, and you can see which ones make sense to you.
our system isn't necessarily government run.
Which system?
The monetary.
Correct. Well, the monetary system is a little bit, but no, like our economy overall is still basically a free market.
It's free market, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But like you know, if you were going to launch a new product, whatever, would you want your regulatory structure to look more like the healthcare industry or more like TVs? Right?
If I wanted to launch a new product, would I want to look like the healthcare industry or TVs?
Would you want all the red tape of the healthcare industry, which would make it virtually impossible to do
Right.
anything?
No, yeah, I see what you're saying. Sorry.
Or somebody can just make a better, cheaper TV and sell it for less.
Right.
And that's why the prices of TVs have dropped, you know, from $5,000 down to about $500 in just a few years.
And that's why healthcare has pretty much skyrocketed.
It's
That's
not
why
it's not a free market.
Oh shit.
So we can debate the merits with everybody, and I'm happy that people certainly feel differently, and that's totally cool. But to pretend that the healthcare has failed because we're a capitalist system,
it's failed because of government.
I don't follow the logic personally. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm saying that it's more or less prices have gone up and there's issues because the government has put their hands in everything.
Yeah, seems to be a recurring theme. So the case for more government intervention. I mean, I'm open to learning, but I'm having a hard time seeing it.
Yeah. No, that's makes sense. It makes sense. That part of it it doesn't make sense, but you know, you can get what I'm saying.
I like your questions, man. You took this a lot of different directions. We went from financial planning to cryptocurrency to debt to free markets, and you're everywhere. I like it.
Yeah, I'm all over the place. On my brand, I'm all over the place. That's why I can't find one thing to hone in on.
That's great. That's the way to do it.
Is there anything? So I think now we're almost an hour in. Is there anything that you want to mention that I didn't get a chance to talk about, even with my questions being all over the place?
Yeah. No, I appreciate it. No, and I appreciate having me on a little bit of podcast tour because you know, my new book's just out. So if you don't mind me plugging my book real quick,
Of course.
Amazon.com, just search The Year Off and it's on there, and check it out. Hope you'll like it. And you can also, I got a website for my book, yearoff.co, yearoff.co if you want to check out. I got a contact page on there. Feel free to contact me about anything, man. I mean, maybe someday I'll be so busy. I'll just have an assistant answering emails and I'll be somewhere else. But, you know, for now, anybody can hit me up. I'm happy to engage and talk about whatever, point you in the right direction of things I've learned or read. So that's totally cool. But no, man, I appreciate having me on. And I think that, again, if I can leave anybody with a message, it is to be prepared. So one of the things that I haven't rolled out in my marketing yet, but I think I got to look up the date, but I think on my Instagram account, I think it was January 11th or 23rd or whatever the date was. I put out a little meme that said, "Be prepared for a year off. You never know when one will be forced upon you." And that was also the first day that China reported they'd found some new virus, and it was reported in the New York Times on that same date. And it's just kind of funny now looking back. Like, of course I didn't know anything, and it's just pure luck. But it also reinforced my point. Like, you never know.
Yeah,
like, you don't have to be a prepper. You just have to. But you can get your shit together. It doesn't take that much work.
Yeah, there's this feeling that we had up until now, at least in my lifetime, where bad things that pause everything, like this COVID stuff, won't happen. It can't.
Yeah.
The government will figure it out. The government's still trying to figure it out.
Yeah,
We're months into this. It's August. I remember people saying it might last until May.
Yeah,
and it started happening in March, and I was like,
I know. It's been pretty crazy. No, it's about being able to take care of yourself, and you know, it seems to be becoming less fashionable by the day, but I think it's important for a person to be able to take care of themselves. Provide for themselves.
The government. If you wait for the government and you don't have a plan, I mean that's an issue. Like,
yeah, exactly. And so your money's part of it. You know, like it or not, your money. Like I said, money's one of the main operating systems that runs your life, and you got to keep experimenting till you find something that works.
Awesome. This has been great. I think that a lot of people will get a lot out of this.
Good.
I would say if you can look into the Audible book, you got a great energy. You speak well. I think it'd be an easy listen for people.
Appreciate it, man. No, I will. I like the vote of confidence. I'll do that. I'll move forward on that. See what it takes.
I'll look at, and then I'll make sure I check out Amazon as well, and I'll put that onto the description as well for everybody.
Thanks, man.
Listening and watching.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Right on.